packet, package though.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I know, it's cool. I feel so much better.
It is.
So much better.
It's hard to follow up on the screen sometimes.
You didn't like it when we have the red streak for a while?
It feels like cheating.
It does, yeah, right.
Okay, I call to order the March 9th meeting of the Bethlehem Library Board of Trustees. We will start with public participation. And our Vice President, Sarah Patterson, will read our statement before that.
Beginning and ending each library board meeting with public participation is an opportunity for community members to express their thoughts on library operations to the board. Because the purpose of the monthly meeting is to conduct board business, it is not a time for back and forth debate with members of the board. If specific questions are presented during public participation and the relevant information is readily available, the board will make an effort to address the question in the course of the meeting. Otherwise, community members may follow up on any questions by directly contacting the library director or the board via email or speaking to them after the meeting. We will advertise organized opportunities to speak directly with board members. A reminder that all library policies apply at board meetings, including the patron conduct policy and the harassment policy.
Do we have any public participation here this evening? You have any online, Jeff?
No.
Then why don't we take a minute to go around and introduce ourselves?
Sherry Whiting, Board Treasurer.
Sarah Patterson, Vice President.
Laura Tabata, Secretary.
Gail Sacco, trustee.
Jill Adams, Trustee.
Michelle Walsh, Trustee.
Mark Kissinger, trustee and UHLS board member. Jeff Kirkpatrick, library director.
Carolyn Brancatella, President. Thanks, everyone. Why don't we start with a review of the meetings of the minutes of our last meeting?
Yes, we should definitely. Laura, you had.
Yeah, but there was just one, I forget, was it page
Five.
5? There's just like obviously like a leftover line that hadn't been cleaned up yet,
This one right here.
Yeah.
This line just.
needs to go. So, yeah,
Yeah.
make a motion. Thanks, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the elimination of the extra line on page 5.
A second.
All those in favor? The motion passes. Okay, next we have the financial report, and I believe that as part of this, we're gonna do it under old business, we're gonna do it, okay, yeah. Got it.
Okay, so the report as of February 28th, we've mentioned that we are over budget on a few lines. However, expenses overall are tracking right on budget. And those areas that are a little over budget are salaries and benefits, which we've talked about, and electric. But overall operations, the operations budget is tracking under budget right now, but it's still, not early in the year, but there's 4 months left and we'll catch up on some of those expenses, I'm sure. On the revenue side, we did receive close to 4,500 in PEG funds from the town, which has been credited to miscellaneous revenue. So you'll see that line a little larger than it normally is. And we also received a special legislative grant of a little over $3,000. And that's, I believe, on the grants line. But other than that, I think things are, tracking very normally.
What is PEG?
Public education government.
Thank you.
So
Public.
in the town, people pay a small fee to Verizon or Spectrum. They then pay it to the town and it can be used for the public access television, equipment only, and we submit bills to the town. We purchase equipment for people to do this time, in this particular case, it was logging on the PEG channel, and the town reimbursed us for those expenses.
Thank you, Tony.
And I'm correct that that legislative grant came as a result of our assembly member directed funding to libraries throughout the assembly district.
Right.
And he'll be here Friday for the big check.
But I don't know if anyone has any questions about any of the specific expenditures or.
I do. On page, on the check warrant, page 101, you have CDPHP for 37,000 and MVP for 20.
Jens.
But they're two different vendors, so is one retirement, one non-retirement, or how?
So we have retirees only have the option of CDPHP.
Okay.
But currently employees have either MVP or CDPHP. So
So the 37,000, how many, there's not that many retirees, is there?
no, of that 37,000, probably about 9,000 is for
Retirees, and the rest is current employees, and then the MVP is other people who chose MVP.
And the MVP is that, so that MVP one, that 29,000, that was
Yeah.
actually 2 months. They were behind in billing us,
Oh,
with the new year and the rollover,
yeah,
so that's actually 2 months.
that's 2 months, okay. I just want to understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the financial report? So moved. Yeah, first, Michelle second, all those in favor? Motion passes. Okay, Jeff, the personnel report.
Okay, for the report, there is a slight change that I've given you in paper. An updated personnel report. We had there are two actions requested in the packet. There's only one action requested for a 1 page. We had another page resigned their. Moving on to bigger and better things, and so I requesting permission to fill 2-page positions, $18 an hour, both for 12.8 hours a week.
Any questions? Would anyone like to make? Laura, as the first. As the first? Second, Michelle second, all those in favor? The motion passes.
Director's report. Okay, lots of fun things going on here. We met with the Del Mar Progress Club, and I think I had talked to everybody that we have 2 very long time Del Mar Progress Club garden volunteers who've been working with the library for years. They are that portion of their volunteerism, we're done with that for now. So they, with our good graces and thanks for all, almost 20 years of dedication to the library, working in our gardens and working with the staff. The Progress Club would like to continue that relationship with the library in maintaining the gardens. They give us a stipend every year to purchase and the annuals that are planted around the library's garden. They want to continue that. And then we talk to them, we understand that not everybody wants to dedicate the amount of time that our previous 2 volunteers dedicated to the library, but we would still like to do that. And to dedicate some time to coming to the library and maybe so we're going to start with a planting. So we're going to have a big planting day in the spring. When it's time to put annuals in the ground, they're going to go out, they're going to work with Kevin, use the money that they give to purchase the annuals, and then they're going to come with all the club members or many of the club members and do a planting day. So I'm happy to see that more than 100-year partnership with the Del Mar Progress Club continue. So I'm excited about that. And this year, the annuals will have a red, white, and blue theme to go with bicentennials. No, not bicentennial. The 70th quest, whatever.
Yeah.
250th anniversary. Before I tie myself into a knot. We'll talk about the boiler a little bit later on. That's fine. And then I met with our designers from CSR for the kickoff meeting for the design for the house demolition project. So questions from them, we provided them with the reports that we had, the hazmat reports and all of the site surveys and geotechnical reports that we had on the property. So we don't need to do any more of those. The phase one, the assessment of oil tanks and all of those things, of which there are none on the property. That has all been completed already as part of our previous projects. So extra reports that we frequently have to do any kind of project. All that work has already been done, which is awful nice. So
That's an example of the efficient use of library funds in terms of using material and information that we had already paid for and not expensing new.
Yes.
Good.
it's great. We just want to call out that we relaunched the remote printing service for the library, so people can print from home. They can print inside the library from their mobile devices, which is a frequently requested thing. When we can't do this as efficiently, then people have to log into one of our computers, log into their email, and then print from there. This makes it easier for them. They get a release code, they go up to the station, type their code in, and they get their print. And the desk staff are not involved. They don't handle their documents. The documents are all handled by the system, which is awful nice. So that's cool. And then the seed library launched on March 2nd. Everybody loves the seed library. It's going like gangbusters out there. So I'm happy to see the seed library cooking off again. Lots of wonderful programs, little Sunday music. We had our AI and the environment class on 226. We had a PhD candidate from SUNY here talking to the group about that. The Historical Association Speaker Series continues, and then some other wonderful, good programs for adult and general audiences. Technical services, we'll just talk a little bit about our magazine circulation. We had some questions about that last time, and it's not a great number. So if we take out the magazine circulation, the stats show a decrease, but we have a door count that's up by 7.5%. So that's great news. And we're seeing that objectively in the library or anecdotally in the library with increases in the studying, particularly since the midterms in January, and it has not slacked off since then. The studying, both with tutors and with groups of people studying in the library, is beginning to look like what I think that looks like in 2017 and 2018. So all pre-pandemic. So that's interesting as we just continue to look at our circulation data versus our door count data, and some things that used to just track right with each other aren't necessarily tracking with each other.
Can I just interpret that for a second, Jeff?
Yeah.
So that means, that is physical magazine circulation. If you're taking out the
I
overnight.
take out the digital, we just take out, no, this is just a total circulation.
Okay,
So we just saw a slight decrease last month over the previous
okay,
6 months.
which, I mean, obviously, magazine circulation across the board in the world has gone down significantly.
Yes,
But because door count is up, it means that people are coming into the library for other reasons. Whereas
Correct.
once upon a time, a lot of people came in on a regular basis to read our magazines, but they are still coming in for other reasons at this point.
yeah, and we're seeing that increase. It used to be circulation in general, just tracked exactly with door count. It was just a ratio. And now we're seeing those two things decouple a little bit, and we have to figure out what our relationships are.
You have talked about in the past how circulation is decreasing on physical on books.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how is purchasing on books? Is it the same as it's always been, or is that also decreasing? And would that at all have any bearing on?
It could, I mean, so we're shifting where we see demand, right? So as demand increases for the digital circulation, we're net shifting money from one to there's no other source of the money, right? It's there's a net shift in money towards the electronic materials. So with the expense of the electronic materials is a reality that we spend, those items are expensive. The electronic items are much more expensive than the physical materials. So could it be impacting? Yes. Is it a supply thing? I don't think it is. I think we try to keep the hold times similar, and the hold times for the electronic books continue to exceed the hold times for the physical items. So there would be an argument for spending more on the, you know, but it is literally an infinite hole into which I cannot stuff enough money. So it, you know, for
I didn't know if in the past, possibly you ordered, I'm just choosing numbers out of the air.
Yeah.
20 Dean Koontz books, and now you
Absolutely.
only order 10.
That's correct. You are 100% correct. We absolutely do that, but that's based on the demand for those
There's only
titles.
demand for 10.
Correct, and then so we see a decrease in demand, especially in the most popular titles, the mysteries, the romances, the sort of general very popular fiction. That's where we see the highest percentage of people who want that in electronic. So it's I can't fill that demand, but yeah, it's the Wild West.
The other piece of it, Michelle, is that people, especially young people, do their research online. So there used to be a surge in circulation, you would have country report, and you'd go to the library to get the country books. Well, now you have a country report and they're going on the Department of Defense website to see if there's what's going on with the country, or all of those things that used to be book-based for research. The demand for them has dropped a great deal because people first look online before they move to the books.
Right, yeah, no, I understand the shift to digital.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure if we're really, you know, doing a deep analysis that you're paying attention, if you're not offering as many books as maybe people want to check out, but it sounds like you are.
Yeah,
That might also affect your numbers and
it
skew the analysis a little bit.
It could, and fair enough, and it's a good
Yeah.
question, and I think that in the end, what we look at is wait times for holds, and then the unfilled holds list. And what we're seeing in, let's take an extreme example. So compared to 10 years ago, the hold lists on movies used to be super long. We couldn't buy enough copies. We were buying like 20 copies of a popular movie.
For streaming.
And
yeah.
now, I mean, I feel like I can't give a DVD away. So the hold lists rarely are very deep on those. So take that as an example of the books. We have a number of titles that we have are just sort of like a mechanical order. Like we know if a Stephen King novel's coming out, it's going to be popular. We know it's going to be about this many. We can adjust later if it's particularly popular. We can order extra copies, but we know it's like that. But we have adjusted that how many titles we order down for a lot of the authors just because the hold lists aren't there to back up buying as many copies.
Gotcha.
And that's what we count on the public putting those holds on, and we're lucky because we have a public that likes to put holds on here. They love it. And so it gives us really good data about that. And we look at the wait times for the electronic books. I mean, it's long.
Yes.
And I can't shift enough money over without taking all the money and putting it towards electronic.
Right, and that's what I hear about the most too, is the electronic
Yeah.
wait times.
I mean, I honestly don't know how much money I need. You could probably honestly double the whole materials line, bring those wait times into some sort of accordance.
The good news about the electronic wait times is that you can't be late returning it. Is that it just, on the due date, it disappears. So at least there's not that additional lag of things.
Yes, I mean, there's advantages of the bonus. I will shut up about this. Yes, I love talking about this. Thank you for your question, Michelle.
Moving on.
Moving on. I will let
Let me
you.
jump in and say, I mean, I'm sure everyone at this table did it too, but like, if you have your card from here and then you have the other systems that we participate in, and then if you do a New York Public Library card, which we can all do, that does sometimes help cut down on the wait for the e-items, because if we don't have it, other people might.
Yes, yeah, right. And those three other systems, just like their patrons to our stuff, they can only get stuff if it's not requested and it's basically sitting on the digital shelf. And same way with ours, not New York Public. If you get a New York Public, you are a full-fledged card holder for New York Public Library, just like you are a full-fledged card holder of both Bethlehem and Upper Hudson Library System. But the three other systems, you can kind of get the stuff that no one's using right now. We'd rather have someone reading it than if it's just sitting there. So, but it can help, especially if you have a wider, you're a little bit more eclectic in your reading. It just gives a much wider and a broader access to a wider range of titles. Yeah, go get a New York Public card. But we do our collection for the size of our population, we do pretty well. I'm pleased. Lots of also great stuff in the youth services department. I always talk about the early literacy programs, the numbers speak for themselves, but there were a number of great programs during the vacation week. We had bilingual story time, some great pictures there. Some kids were very, very excited. Right up speaker, right with the story time. We had that Jordan Hill drumming was here also that same week. Just really high attendance during this month, and then the Mo Willems celebration. Literally, you'll see the attendance at 123. We did not have 123 people in there at the same time, but some people were able to leave, and there were some folks that were disappointed because they were not able to get into that program. The room is the size that it is, so there it was. But there's our staff doing an awesome job. With that, we partnered with Del Mar Fire right here here to do a fire safety and prevention program, and those are evergreen because there's always new kids who have not had a fire safety story time, right? I'm like, oh yeah, we've done fire safety story time a bunch, but there keeps being new kids, so that's great. And then, so if you go to the children's department right now, if you haven't been over, I encourage you to do it before you leave tonight. We've rearranged the picture books, opened up a lot more space towards the windows to allow for a play area, and we have a bunch of new furniture on the way, which the Friends have agreed to fully fund.
What is the new furniture? What specifically?
There's a cool, I think I've had a picture last month. There's a big truck that is both a shelf and a truck that the kids can sit in. So we're gonna put all the transportation books on those shelves there. So there's gonna be a bunch of new seats and benches, animal seats and benches. So that's, and then a bunch of toys, like a bunch of new toys. And like I said, the Friends spent $7,000 or more than $7,000 and fully funded the whole operation. So.
And there'll be new furniture for the adult new books.
Yeah, you got it. So, and then separate from the kids area, well, we need new shelves for the adult book area, and they will look a lot like the current new bookshelves. They're sort of triangle shaped angled shelves, only they will be individual 3-foot sections, and they will be mobile if we want to move them. So right now they're kind of hooked, they're all hooked together, so we have to move it. It's very difficult to move that whole operation. Now we can separate those out, and our maintenance people will be able to move them much more easily.
Was that part of the Friends package or?
No, we're just
Okay.
yes, we waited as long as we could on those shelves. They have done their bit for King and Country, and they really did need replacement. And we kept looking at if we're doing a redesign in the interior of the library, we have to get this done, and we need shelves, so we're doing it. And then I was asked to include all the continuing education and committee work. This month there was a Public Library Association webinar, which many of the staff were there for. It's just they had real world approaches to ice in the library, and we took some of the information there and reworked our one-pager for the staff so they can have at the desk for their just interactions with law enforcement in general at the desk. So just hearing the firsthand accounts of Hennepin County and Minneapolis and hearing how their library dealt with the situation they were having there. So it was good. It was a good webinar. So some other committee work and webinar. There's the pictures of the maintenance guys moving the kids' shelves around on sliders and putting them in a new location closer up to the children's desk.
They create a lot of spaces.
It's nice, right? Yeah. Other than that, I don't think I have much to say about the statistics. Like I said, struck down a little bit, and lots of good increases. E-audiobook continues to increase no matter what, but we did see a decrease in ebook use. So that's with physical last month in February, physical book reading stayed the same and ebook use went down a little bit. So any questions for me?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, anything from UHLS?
Nope, meeting is Wednesday. So I'll work over it.
Jill, anything to report to us from the Friends?
Only that I've been working with Mary Kennard to source somebody that will help the Friends make mugs that they can sell. It's been a little bit more circuitous than you might expect. But she's on it. She's very persistent.
Excited to hear that. Will those, do you know if those will be at the upcoming book sale?
That is the goal, but I don't know. Can't tell you that yet.
Okay, on to new business. Jeff?
Okay.
Another spotlight.
Another spotlight article request. It's actually not the first time the board has dealt with this particular request. We've ruled on this previously. It included the email from the attorney in the packet. Well, they make an argument about the reason that this individual's name should be redacted from the Spotlight archive. And particularly given the age of the individual at the time of the situation. And the fact that the Spotlight News has had redacted the name previously and has gone further and now unpublished the article in their archives. They're requesting once again that that we do the same, given that the source material is now changed. So I bring this up again, just because there is a wrinkle here, the wrinkle being that this individual is underage, was underage at the time of the alleged incident. And has since been, redacted or sealed. And then the fact that the Spotlight has taken that out, that really doesn't have as much bearing as I think the attorney thinks it does. That's really, we are an archive. We have an archive of the Spotlight that doesn't have as much bearing for me. But this, we continue to have this come up. And it continues to be, it will continue to be a perpetual situation. I do not anticipate that there is going to be less of this, though we no longer are a recipient of the Spotlight archive, because the Spotlight has now been purchased by the Gazette and their archives are now subject and owned. Archives going forward will be subject and owned by the Gazette to handle however the Gazette handles it. So there's a time frame where we have this and we have permission to have these things on our website from the owner of the Spotlight. So the question is really, with the law being very clear that there is nothing, there's really nothing to compel the library to take down anything or remove it from an archive. The law is very strongly worded on that side that we can keep it. What then is the interest of the community and of the library in either removing that article, redacting the name of somebody who was a minor and who later had something sealed officially to the courts, right? So you had people who were the majority who had stuff sealed later on. We've had that come up before. We've had people that just don't like the fact that the picture's in the Spotlight or their name's in the Spotlight. We've had people request to be out for that reason. And then now we have a person who is an underage. He was accused of a crime and a person who's underage.
Do you want me to?
I'm in, Gail. I don't know. I'm just about done talking about it. So
Well, I called Jeff because I didn't understand what was going on. And I know several instances where somebody I know got stopped because he had a gun and that was in the Spotlight. So what I talked to Jeff about was coming up with something that would balance all of the requests. And so it seems to me that we need to take the Spotlight and make it in library use only. And that will put a wall up for a search of that, as I understood it from talking to Jeff, for a search of the Spotlight by somebody in Texas who wants to find out about me and find out, all my Spotlight articles from when I was working. And at the same time, it preserves the idea of an archive. Taking it off online does not clarify it. There was an incident with the Times-Union where there was a problem. It was taken off online, but the archive of the newspaper still had the original article. The young man in question in this particular case, he has documentation that the charges were dropped. So in terms of his future, having that article one way or another is not going to impact his future. But if we say that for organizations in the school district, the yearbooks was something that came up, the spotlight. If we have any other material from the school district or the town, if we say local history has to be done in the library or with a Bethlehem library card, it effectively puts a block up, satisfies that particular letter, but also allows us to address it in the future. Because the internet now is a very different place than the internet used to be. Also, if that got picked up, go someplace else, we have no control over that as well. So my suggestion would be that we have a policy that says that organizations within our service area, material that we collect can only be used in the library or just suggested with a Bethlehem library card.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I was a little bit more of an absolutionist on this one, and now I don't have guidance. I mean, I have legal guidance. We know that we have the absolute right to keep it up. Absolutely.
But we can't delete the picture from the other woman who has approached us. We can't have staff be blacking out people's names, which is what would have, I mean, that's not our role. That's not our role, in my opinion.
So it sounds like we have kind of two questions at bar. One, we have the reconsideration for this particular request, which we need to discuss today, but also, Gail, the point that you're making is whether you'd like to make a motion on that today or whether we'd like to have discussion on that today is, or make that a point to discuss at a future meeting, how to handle this moving forward.
Sure, I can make a motion. The exception would be if somebody came to Jeff with a court order that something had to be changed, but right now they're not able to do that.
I don't think that's very likely. I mean, attorneys look at this whole situation, that's just not likely to happen, given the freedom of the press and the rights of libraries to hold archives. So,
It does seem like newspaper, I mean, because it did give me pause that this is a minor situation. I think that, and my understanding is more and more newspapers are now not publishing the names of minors. So it's an evolving process, procedure. So more and more newspapers are just not publishing the names of minors, but they did then. So I would definitely want to discuss a policy where we remove access to information digitally. That feels like a huge access issue, people who can't physically come to the library and who are local. I'm not, I certainly would not be in favor of that without further, tonight I would want to discuss that further, because it really has access issues for even people in our own community. So I don't have I'm not sure what my answer is, but I do feel like the minor issue, changes things a little bit. But I know there's no law. I would wish the American Library Association would provide some kind of guidance for libraries, and it doesn't seem like they have any guidance.
no, I think what's interesting, and just take as an analogy, is that absent legal opinion, the newspapers do have developed these procedures where they're like, oh, you bring me the paperwork, show me that it was expunged or sealed, and we'll go ahead and take that. So they're doing that. They have a different reason to exist than the archives. But it is interesting that isn't exactly evolving. We're dealing with a publication that's been out since the 50s. You can imagine, they used to publish people's address. They were like, oh, Jeff Kirkpatrick at 451 Delaware Avenue, blah, 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 blah. That's how they used to go right in. That's just the way they reported back then, because the information went a certain place. And I think if we had the paper bound in folios in a locked cabinet at the back of the library, no one's complained to us about the fact that exists, right? It's the fact that it's searchable and Googleable, and it changes the nature of the information that has caused this spate of requests that we're getting, and it is, unfortunately, it's up to us. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's up to us. You wish for some guidance. Most public libraries don't tend to hold an archives like this, so they don't deal really, their collections are very small and much less controversial than this. So,
Is it possible to lock it behind the card? I mean, because I've done research in like academic libraries and
Yeah.
sometimes like that is the situation there that like not everyone can access it remotely, but if you have been granted access by having a card or whatever, then you
Right.
can get to it. Is that something we could?
I think it's certainly technologically possible. Whether it's reasonably technologically possible, that's a question that we would have to explore. But I think it's an interesting question that leaves it open to our local patrons who support the.
I mean, those are the people that are most likely to want it and be able to look at it or whatever, but it helps for people that have that sort of situation and they don't live in town and they're the people Googling them for their job won't see it, but if you're a local person wanting to look it up, you still could.
Jeff, when did we move from microfilm to internet, and is the whole paper? Is the whole you said some of it was on microfilm.
So we have it on microfilm. I would love to give you the date. I could give you the date, but I don't have it on top of my head. Let's say it's up through the 2000s someplace. What we had was we took our the physical spotlight that we had in folios bound in the back of the library. We took those and had them scanned. At the same time that we had them scanned onto microfilm, we also had them scanned digitally. So we did those two things at the same time. Then, so of that microfilm run, we took that whole run and we preserved that, because what was going on is that people were going back to the folios and were razor blading out articles that they didn't like. So we were losing information every year, so we wanted to stop that loss. So we microfilmed them, and those microfilms are not generally available to the public. We hold them here at the library. We have this archives. That is
So
there.
if we crossed out his name in the PDF online, it might still be on the microfilm.
It's definitely in the microfilm. I'm not crossing out anything on a microfilm.
Yeah.
So we have that, and then in our conversation with the Spotlight, as we were negotiating to put this up on the web, that was the rights were still held by the Spotlight. We negotiated with them as a local paper. They said, yeah, we're going to give you the rights, and what's more, we'll give you the actual digital file that we created the Spotlight from. So from that point forward, they said, well, it's news for the first 3 months. Don't put it up. That's what the Spotlight is. It's news. But after 3 months, it's not news anymore. Then we'll send it to the library, and you guys can just put up the file. And those are the ones that are in color. Before that, it's like a black and white, photocopy of the newspaper. After that, it's the actual digital file of that. So you'll see those are in color versus the older ones are in black.
So we have the Spotlight archive from 1955 to 2023.
I would just add the flip side of your comment is that people will also not be able to search for things that maybe we would want them to find out about, right? I mean, it goes
Yes.
both ways, like you
Oh, yes, believe me, I've been like, I want to get into this archive because I can see they have a document that I want to look at and I can't
Right.
see it.
And to put it behind a library card, or in libraries only, we have a terminal and use that there. It takes away the utility of the people who are doing genealogical research or whatever.
Well, on the merits of this case, I felt entirely different once I heard the Spotlight was information. As far as if the original source has taken the information away, I just do not have a problem with taking it off digitally. If it's on microfiche or microfilm, so be it. But digitally and making it unsearchable again is okay by me.
I think that and the fact that the person was underage, those two things make me somewhat inclined to agree.
Yeah, the underage thing is what I come back to, because it's sort of applying today's rules to something that was published some time ago.
But he did it. I mean, I guess I would be the nay vote here, because he did it. He did it at a time when it was reported. I'm sorry he was underage, but he has paperwork if he has to move forward, and it was reported.
The
I,
paperwork won't help them if the person's already done a search and doesn't even grant an interview or.
but that's not the
consultation.
problem. He did it and it was reported. It was reported in the way that things were reported at that time. It's a board decision, and obviously if I'm the naysay and everyone else wants to do it, it will happen, but I just,
Well, case was dismissed, right?
right, and he has the paperwork that the case
Right.
was.
So the person was arrested for something, 17-year-old was arrested for something.
They're not sent me all the details, but I might say more expunged.
I
I think
expunged.
the records were expunged.
So I just
I'm
to,
with you, Gail. I
just
mean,
to,
it is what it is at the time. We're an archive.
and if we do that for this person,
When do we stop?
then the lady who came in who.
No, I don't think it's the same at all,
Okay, so
Yeah.
what, explain.
because the spotlight, the original source of the information has now taken it away.
Okay,
That's a huge difference.
okay,
Was the other person underage?
No.
yes. She was in high school. She was in high school.
Yeah, so.
The one that came to the board when I
High
was
school.
on the board, she was in high school.
Yeah, she was. The one that's-
It's the high school.
It was a high
She
school,
was in high school.
choir or something, yeah.
She was also underage.
It was different circumstances, but she
Okay.
was,
Yeah.
in the information that she wanted us to remove, she was underage at the time that information was published in the paper.
But again, the spotlight did not remove the information relating to that individual, but to this individual, they did.
Okay, but that information,
Right.
I would want to be consistent with their own decision, so. I know I'm going back and forth, but that's because I'm trying to figure this
So
out.
if a policy we came up with talked about a general way we would handle it, unless there was a legal or I don't know the right words, maybe the lawyer at the table knows the right words.
A legal reason, a statutory.
A reason that comes up that overrides the policy, we could make an individual decision. So let me speak English. We could, I don't think we should vote on anything today. I think we should ask the director to try to develop something we can see in writing. But we could say that we're going to make the spotlight community use only, with the idea that if you have a Bethlehem Library card, you can get into it, and if you don't, you can call a librarian and find a way. And if there is an overriding reason, a legal reason, or whatever, that on an individual basis, we could make a decision on an individual basis. I'm not saying this clearly, but I'm trying to.
No,
You know.
I go back to Gail, I think there's two things. I have concerns about, I think we've been asked to make a decision on this. And we follow our policies for reconsideration, there's timing on that. I wanna make sure that, I don't wanna, the due process to some extent is extended here, that we don't kick the can down the road for this particular person. We can always retroactively make a change if the policy says something different, if that policy allows for retroactive changes, FYI. But I think I do, and please discussion, I do think that we have a request for reconsideration in front of us that deserves or requires even, Jeff, a vote today. And then I think there is the question of how we deal with this situation moving forward.
So it says the spotlight took down the whole article.
Yes.
Is that what they're asking us to do? Just to pretend like the article was written?
They approached me about, we've been back and forth with this legal firm a ton. Anywhere from taking down the whole article, redacting the name individually, leaving the name in there and indexing it, which I'm not technically sure exactly how to do. But I think they want any action on this at all. That's from they're working for their client. They have a goal, and the goal is to not have this name affiliated with this article come up in a Google search for whatever reason.
Right.
I mean, I think they would love it if you took down the whole article, as the Spotlight did, but
Right,
they didn't originally approach me asking that.
right, so as we're thinking about to what the spotlight does, we'll make our own decision, right? So taking down the whole article seems not great, but I probably would be okay with changing, redacting the name or saying 17-year-old resident of Bethlehem.
And I guess I would just say if the article is not available from the publishing source, I don't see a need for Bethlehem Public Library to keep it. If it's, because if you were a researcher and you usually, your information has to come from the source. And if it doesn't exist there, I don't see a need for us to keep it.
I think at this point, we're looking for a motion from the board on how to handle this.
Don't give me a sign.
Well, I'll make a motion then to, at first I wasn't sure if it would be redacting, but I would say, I would make a motion to unpublish the article entirely. Well, we wouldn't unpublish, what would we do?
Redact the entire article.
Okay,
Redact article.
all right, so
That's-
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Michelle has made a motion. Are there any seconds?
So if we don't have a second,
It doesn't move forward, is my understanding.
I'm just redacting his name.
Would anyone like, are there any seconds on the motion?
more in favor of redacting the article, so if someone else wants to do the name.
Would anyone else like to make a motion on this?
So this hasn't happened before, if we need to move forward,
We've
what's the
not,
process?
correct, and so this is not, you are not the first board to wrestle with this, first of our boards to wrestle with this, it has come up. For those who've been on the board longer, you've seen this before, other boards, none of you on it have dealt with this. We have not redacted anything heretofore. This is the first time in my memory that the request for redaction came from an offender who was a minor. That's the difference in this versus every other case that has come before this board and me. It's the thing that gave me pause as I thought about this.
Has there been time in the past when the original publisher has removed the article and we've been asked?
I think in the past, there have been situations where the name has been de-indexed or redacted in the original article, and we chose to leave our one there. But they were all, none of them had been a minor. And that's the difference. And so, and the thing is, 10 years ago, when these decisions were being made, we're in a different world, right? So the world is thinking differently about crimes and how far that needs to follow you along. Society moves forward, and obviously we're dealing with a paper that was published at a time when thoughts were different. I don't think the spotlight today would put that child's name in an article in the spotlight. I think you'd never see that now. I think they specifically would not do that, but that wasn't the case then. So that is, that's the complexity of this. I'm sorry to present this with you, to keep bringing this back up. It is complicated, and it's subtle and nuanced and difficult.
But we do have to make a motion, or we do have to make a decision on this request for reconsideration. So I will ask again, I can make a motion if we need to, but if anyone else from the board would like to make a motion based on our discussion, how to handle this.
I would like to make a motion to remove the name of the minor in this article.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so. I don't know if you want this to be a motion. I make a motion that we develop a policy regarding our archives and an archives policy when people come and request a change. We can. Can someone word craft?
Future. Make a motion to create a policy regarding requests to modify our archives.
Yes, thank you.
Does anyone want to second that motion?
I'll
All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes. I'll let go of my purity on this one.
And then just as a, sorry to belabor the point, how many archives do we have besides the spotlight?
So we've got of things that would sort of fall into specifically to us. We've got the Spotlight. We've got the Tri-Village directories, the Bethlehem Yearbook archives, which is another one that is potentially thorny. But that had to end in the copyright rules changed in Chris 1991. So that archive only goes up through before copyright law changed on our ability to have that. So we have those up. And talk about
But
this.
we have a policy in place, correct?
On this particular issue, what, we do not, the question is really,
Yeah, it's
We
the
have collections
collections.
policy, collection.
but this kind of thing where we get a
Yeah.
legal, from an attorney making a request to do this. This is fairly new.
And increasingly frequent. I mean, those of you who've been here, you've seen this now several times, and that's much more frequent than it has ever been at any point in any time for the whole time we've had the archive.
Just for clarity in my head, so right now, if someone asks, we talk about it and we vote. If we have a policy, I guess I'm not clear what that looks like. So the policy's just gonna tell us what we do, like if the person is a minor, it's a yes, and if the person isn't a minor, it's a no, and that's it, because that's what the policy says, and we're not gonna vote on it anymore.
So I think as Mark said, I mean, I don't know what the policy looks like.
Right, I'm just
But
making
as
it.
Mark said, right now, this would fall under the collections policy, so basically, we treat this the same way as, we treat this the same way as if we get a request for, I don't want this book in the library. Jeff makes a decision, if they ask for reconsideration, the board then takes it to a vote. I think what is somewhat unique about this situation is that you can split the baby a little bit, as they say, in that they might not be asking for the removal of a whole book. Instead, in this case, they're asking for a redaction of a name or a redaction of a specific piece of information. So I think we would be looking at the creation of a policy, I think specifically to deal with those kind of circumstances. Or specific to more specific to our archive of factual materials, primary sources.
Which should help Jeff, like it will help give you coverage and, like this is what the policy says and.
Well, if we say it, then I just do that. It doesn't have to show back up in front of all of you.
Yeah.
Policy might, in discussion, it might end up being a modification of the collection policy to include something about requests. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can't appeal. It just means that there would be some guidelines to how to approach it.
Yeah, it might be a subcategory of the collections policy that is specific to our archive. Or primary sources, primary sources in our archive.
My concern is it's gonna get worse.
I guess
Trying to figure out how we feel about it as public life.
So let's just say we have a policy. Policy says if it's a minor, we'll say yes, and if it's not a minor, we'll say no. Fine, we've got this policy, Jeff endorses the policy, then the person says, well, I don't agree. It just comes back to us and we're right here where we are right now.
But
That's
an unusual situation, right? We wouldn't get every situation and he'd be backed up on some of those.
Okay, yeah.
But so now that we've had discussion about this vote we just had, I don't quite know what to do here, but I wanna change my vote. Can I do that?
You do another motion.
You can do another motion.
Well, it's just that I don't think creating a policy, I really think this is gonna be a case by case basis. I'm not so sure you're gonna be able to create a policy that will umbrella everything. And I would hate to waste a committee's time attempting to umbrella everything.
Let me say this, I respect that you wanna change your vote. I don't think it will change unless anyone else, wants to.
Yeah, I wasn't counting.
Revote that, I believe it was two, sorry. 4-3, sorry.
Good.
Oh, so it
Yeah.
still
So
made.
just make a motion that not create a policy.
So sorry.
That's
It's just, it was too quick. After the first
That's
one,
fine. That's cool. I get
yeah.
it.
The guide, I mean. Like guidelines or some, like, I think it's worth, may not result in a policy, but it seems like it might be worth. Our time. Because these keep coming up so frequently. And so that we can maybe create some kind of parameters, like it does, but maybe it doesn't have to be a formal policy, maybe it could be. Guidelines, that it reminds us what we've decided in the past, so.
But
that
did we just decide to create a new policy?
But
is
how
what-
about if I amend my motion or have a friendly amendment motion to say to investigate the options regarding archival requests as opposed to making a policy.
You gotta do an emotion.
Can I ask something or say, I mean, because to me, it seems like the policy isn't where the logjam happens. Like, I think maybe it's not like an official policy, but Jeff has parameters that he uses for these decisions. And when it comes to him, he uses those parameters. And it seems to me like anytime the answer is no, which is what it typically is, then this process just starts of them appealing and it coming to us anyway. So if we create a policy that helps Jeff make the initial decision, but I don't know that he really needs help making the initial decision. It just seems like every time we say no, unless it's gonna change it to be yes all of the time, sure, we'll redact it or whatever. We're just gonna end up right back here. So I feel like
Which is an argument for a case by case basis approach.
I would say let it stand and we'll take a look and maybe come back with case by case. I just feel that the decision that was made tonight immediately reflects back on other requests we've had that are not consistent about things that happen when someone is an adult that they would like changed because it happened when they were a minor or whatever. I think that we leave ourselves open.
But like, I didn't vote on him, on it being because he was underage. I voted because the original publisher took the information out. So each person maybe had a different reason for their vote.
I understand that, but as an outsider, what you see is that in this case, something got redacted for a minor. And if someone else comes, like this young man from that I know from years ago, who was reported in the spotlight that he got arrested for having a gun. So he's now in his mid-30s. So if he comes back and wants that redacted, what he sees is that we did it for someone else. And I'm not arguing about the why, I'm just saying it puts us in an interesting position. On that note, we should probably move on.
Well, no, I think we have to clean this up a little bit. Do we want the motion that you made to stand and that vote to stand? Or Michelle, you have asked specifically.
I mean,
Do you
if
want to
it's-
make a statement to go on the record that following conversation you would have changed your vote? Or do you want us, do you want to make a motion to cancel that vote? What would you?
What we voted on was that the board will now create a new policy, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so. So I would make a motion to. Not create a new policy,
Can I?
but to look at it on a case by case basis.
Okay, so then I would make a motion to modify the motion that passed.
Okay.
To say what you would, to say something different, to say that it is not an affirmative. We
To
will
say we'll
create
look
a
at for guidelines.
To, yes, to
Investigate.
to look for guidance on this issue, or whatever you would like to say. I don't wanna put words in your mouth.
is it already part of the collection policy? Is this what I was hearing? Like, could we just potentially relook at the collection policy and modify or add to that as
Yeah.
opposed to a new policy?
Because it's part of our collection, it's covered under the collection policy, but it's not specifically, archival collections are not specifically addressed in the collection policy, other than
Well, in your opinion, would that be something that could get added to that?
Yep.
If we were gonna move forward, or would you
Yes.
prefer it to be?
I don't think it needs to be a separate thing because it's the request for reconsideration that we're dealing with, right? And that's ultimately the process that exists. I don't think we need to investigate it to create another process. So I think just some ground rules about what that would be, I would be helpful.
So instead of a new policy, could we amend the vote to being relooking at the collection policy?
So Michelle, with your permission, may I,
Yes.
may I? May I? Please do. I make a motion that to amend the motion that the immediate motion that passed, to change it from the affirmative of we will create a policy to say that we will review our collections policy to determine whether it is feasible or necessary to add guidelines regarding our archives. All those in favor? The motion passes. Thanks, guys.
We got there.
We did. Does anyone have any other new business? Okay, moving on to old business, we give the floor to Sherry. We have our budget, which the board, the goal here is to take a vote on whether we pass this budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
So we reviewed the budget last month. And since last month, I made one very minor change. And that is, I had a wrong number for state aid, so I increased it to make it more accurate, which resulted in a little bit of a decrease to the amount needed from the fund balance. 223,000 instead of 225,000. That's why that number is a little different. Everything else is remained exactly the same as it was last month.
Remind everyone, this went through the financial committee and there was discussion on this at the last board meeting. Does anyone have any additional questions or discussion that they'd like to bring up this evening?
I just had a suggestion for how it's presented to the public. Where we talk about library materials.
You might want to scroll
Yeah,
up
scroll
to the format that, or scroll down, whichever.
Oh,
To the.
okay, that's-
Or if you wanna wait.
That's separate, yeah, so this is the budget, because it includes the lines, and
Yes,
the
okay.
lines are under the control of the board, the
Yep.
levy is under control of the public. So this is the budget with all of this detail that you guys need to vote on, and then we can talk about how we want to do it separately, you got it, I'm with you. Yep.
Would anyone like to make a motion related to the budget if there's no discussion or questions? Michelle?
I'll second.
Sarah, all those in favor? The motion passes.
So we also,
Yeah, I was gonna say, now that the budget has passed, Laura, you had comments on how to communicate this to the public.
Yeah, and for library materials, would it be worth adding to adjust it to be more in line with actual spending and patron usage? Not like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just. Because we spent a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, reflects just the shift from physical books to ebooks, but also just. Right, but that there were categories that could be dropped because there wasn't the demand.
I would say reflects actual spending as opposed to more in line with actual spending. Give you more space for the rest of it.
Reflect.
And the communications committee did discuss the budget briefly. And points, that we would like to emphasize to the public in communications about this, is that the largest jump is in a portion of the budget over which we have no direct control.
Is it possible, or maybe not even a good idea, you can tell me. To mention that insurance has gone up so much all over. Like I've heard even from people that work in school systems, it's a real issue and it's health insurance.
Yeah,
And that's a good chunk of our budget.
so the,
And I hope that the
We
public,
can add that to the narrative.
yeah, so there's a salary letter that's about to be written, and any of those
Okay.
suggestions, please send
Alright,
us, I mean, happy to talk about it here, and I think it's a very good thing to include
Yeah.
in that narrative. We can put it here as well as, you know.
this health insurance costs have risen dramatically for a lot of sectors in the economy and we're not exempt from that. So a lot of the increase has nothing to do with us.
Well, we can't change our health insurance.
Right.
I mean, we can't,
Which we are trying to do,
right?
right?
We are hoping that there is, that there's a public option of sorts.
Right. But you're right, I mean, it's important to put that, the retirement health insurance program, the big increase, some of the big increase there. And it's underlying, it's at the cap. So that's key
Yeah,
too,
we're within the cap.
equal the cap, right, so.
If you don't think NP training usage is right for this,
Fine.
you can. Well, without all the detail, maybe it doesn't make as much sense.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to the boiler update?
We are. So,
Yes.
Thank you very much for all your hard work.
so the boiler. So, the boiler project had begun before, right? So we talked about minor work that was done in preparation for the boiler, but major boiler work, the sort of what we would say the core of the boiler work started today and will continue for until there's a new boiler, right? So likely for this whole week and into the following week. So the boiler will be coming out tomorrow. The gas lines will be turned off briefly, hopefully before everybody gets here in the morning. The gas will come back on. Weather is nice, which is great, and HVAC system, the air handlers on the roof will continue to provide heat. It will be noticeable because we're expecting it to be a little bit colder this weekend. It's gonna be cold this weekend in the hallways. That space is heated exclusively with the boiler, so there will be some noticeable changes out there. So we're expecting this to get done, but I'm happy that we're doing this now. We had requested that this not happen in January. We were originally set for a late November, December project, and that would have been fine. But the decade record temperatures in January, at my request, we delayed the project until it was a little bit warmer. So I'm happy to have that. Our system should be able to handle the heating needs. It won't be quite as tightly controlled. They said left gas off a little bit for tomorrow, some hot water impacts, but we're excited to get the project moving and get that completed as fast as possible.
Yep, and I think a few of us have got questions on that as to why the boiler is not installed yet.
Yeah.
The answer is that you don't want to change the boilers while you're in the middle of a deep freeze.
Our system needs all aspects of the system at the design day, which is -5 degrees, and when we're down closer to those temperatures overnight, we need the boiler to add its little bit of heating to the rest of the system so that the air handlers can do their job. So at the temperatures we're at now, no problem, and even at, in the 30s, we should be just fine.
Okay. I think our next thing is we are combining really our fourth book update with the communications committee update because they correspond to each other. Before we say that, just from the communications committee, I just want to say thank you to everyone for the cookies and coffee event that the library held. Was it 2 weeks ago? Over 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It was great to see people come out. Thank you for coming and saying hello. And we will let you know about our next opportunity to engage with the board in kind of that informal way. About a general topic, but there on March 30th, we are going to have a meeting, an informational meeting about the Borthwick property. So that is an opportunity to engage with the board, but the communications committee met last week and the primary discussion was how to shape that meeting, how to make that most effective. So on behalf of the communications committee, I just want to kind of tell the full board how we strategized for that meeting and then see if there's any further discussion. So for that meeting, we anticipate starting with a presentation that gives general information about the Porthwick property, why we have it, how we got it, how the library has handled these situations in the past, as it is not the first house that the library has acquired. We would like that to be relatively short, but informative. Then after that, as we know in our previous board meetings, we decided that the space would be used for 4 potential things. And I'm just gonna speak generally here. So garden of some kind, Zen, what I'm going to collectively call Zen space of some kind, reserved for future use. And then the 4th option is to look into storage, how that space might serve as storage for the library or specifically for the Friends of the Library. So with those 4 options in place, we anticipate putting up stations around the room after the presentation, where there is information about each option. This is the kind of gardens we could do. This is the kind of space we could create. These are potential future uses. We do not anticipate having a station for storage space. 1, because it's hard to discuss that without very specifics of library. 2, because that is something that would likely be done in partnership with the Friends, and that partnership has not been fully discussed yet. But at the stations, we would have information and we would station board members. Sorry, to use both the verb and the noun of that word. We would put board members at those stations where they can answer questions of individuals, they can talk about the ideas. That allows for, a little bit more interaction and going a little bit more in depth on topics. At that time, at those stations, the public will also have the opportunity to weigh in with their thoughts, either through a comment box or by putting Post-its up on a board. What type of a garden would you like? What type of a Zen, what would you like to see in a Zen space? And again, we will have prompts for them there in the form of visuals and in the form of information. We might have some other random questions, not random, but affiliated questions like, what type of community partnerships could you see down the line for this? And so that way the members of the public can move among those stations and get more in-depth information about these things. We are hoping to have, the room set up so that we can communicate how this ties into how the library is already operating. We have a table with gardening books. We have a table with items from our library of things that could be used in a green space. And then we go from there. So communications committee, did I miss any of our primary bullets? This is a little bit of different style than we've done in the past, but we hope that it encourages engagement on the topic at hand, and like I said, allows people kind of more of a personal touch than sitting in an audience and being passive. It allows people to actively engage in the topics.
So if people say, now we're here, and when will we hear things? What is our answer?
I think the answer is that our anticipated goal for demolition is still midsummer. We don't have a solid date. And that once that happens, we will move forward based on what the board has decided, with, taking into account the ideas that are given to us, what we would like to move forward with immediately. And I think that information would probably be in the initial presentation.
Because I think that's gonna be a question. We're here.
Absolutely.
We're giving our advice, so now what's gonna happen?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that's a skeleton. Again, Jeff and the staff and the board will continue to work throughout the month on developing that presentation and that meeting. And the communications committee also developed a tagline for this so that the community kind of associates a tagline with this project, and that is green space for growth. And Jeff was kind enough to help us develop something that can go on stickers, that can go on, any information that we put, or buttons, or any information that we put out about this, on social media sites, on, informational packets, in the footnotes, things like that. That is what we're looking at. It is not final, if anyone has any significant comments on that. But that is we had come up with, the communications committee had bantied about several taglines, and that is the one that we landed on. Questions, comments, concerns?
It's lovely, thank you. It is lovely and it is so hopeful.
It is.
Are we prepared if it doesn't quite go that way?
If the meeting doesn't quite go that way, I think, and I want to say this in that I hear your concerns, Michelle, but I think the board throughout this process, I'm very proud of the way the board has handled this process. I don't think that we could have been more transparent about it. It has been an agenda item for the last 6 months, possibly more. All of our discussions are on camera, and we are committed to having a public meeting about this. And I believe that there are many patrons who will enjoy this space and are interested in how it will develop. I also understand, I think all the board understands, that there are going to be people who would prefer that we do something else with the property, and that is, and we'll talk about that at that, and they're welcome to bring that information and their point of view to those meetings and talk to board members individually. That is their prerogative. It is no different than anything else that we do as a board. Sometimes I think that generally people like what we do as a board, but there is never going to be a situation where everyone likes everything.
Right.
But we are here. I just want to say to the public, we are here for transparency. I think we have been doing that. We want to hear from you about this. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of people very interested in this property and how it can be used. We want to hear from you. And if you have concerns, we welcome you as well.
Just encourage everyone to spread the word about it. I don't know if we could create a Facebook event for it, just make it easier to share in groups and whatnot.
We will engage all of our usual strategies on that. And I will make sure to include it in the update that goes out this evening or tomorrow. Okay. Director evaluation update.
Gail and I are working on it. She did a first sort of round of writing up something, and I have not had a chance to look at it yet. So it is in progress. We will get back to
Hopefully
you.
it will be done, we'll meet with you in the next few weeks. People on the board came around about the same kinds of things. We all saw the same kinds of things. And Jeff gave us a wonderful list that I would encourage you to look at it of all of his achievements over the last year. Thanks.
Do we have any other old business? I think Mark had mentioned something.
Yeah, I talked to Caroline this morning. So we're looking at the long range plan, so people have ideas. I got your email, thank you. People have other ideas or thoughts on that, I'm collecting those. So, please send them in.
And I think we anticipate that we will call another meeting of the long range committee.
Yep.
After the Borthwick property meeting.
Right.
We are working on the timeline toward having a new long range plan by the end of the year.
Right.
Okay. Do we have any future business? Do we have any public participation in the room?
Can I just make a comment regarding the spotlight issue, which I found very intriguing, and I think you basically are on the track to the right decision. However, one of my concerns is that the library, as I understand, serves as the archive of the spotlight. And if I understood your decision correctly, you voted to redact the name of the individual from the concerned article. This means that if you do that, there will no longer be a version of the original article in the archives. And I think that's really unacceptable. I think a preferred solution would be to make a public redacted version available, but to retain in the archive the original article. Seems to me the Spotlight is trying to unring a bell. They've already published the article. You can't pretend that it wasn't published. And I think it needs to be retained in some fashion.
They'll definitely, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public participation online?
Sorry,
Okay.
I don't know. I guess I'm the knower of that. Sorry about that. Got excited about that comment. No, we don't have any other comments online.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Joe?
I'll second.
Mark? All those in favor?